Hi, my name is Izzy Bryant, and I'd like to talk to you about implementing certain things in your everyday life. For me, I thought that I could just sort of tap away all the panic and then just carry on with my living, and I didn't realise that I also had to learn a new way of behaving or being, because what was driving the anxiety and the panic was the way I put my emphasis on the thinking, and that's the case for most people that suffer from anxiety and panic. And so you can tap it all away, and then you're carrying on still being like that, kind of thinking a lot and putting your emphasis on those thoughts, which creates more of the same. So I'd heard a lot about mindfulness and meditation and yoga, and I'd also experienced it myself. And I'd heard how amazing it was for people with anxiety and panic, and I kind of thought I just didn't really take it seriously. It just felt like a bit mumbo-jumbo-y, but I started practicing it and noticing the change. And I started reading all the literature around it and all the science, all the data that's coming out, and was quite blown away by how in such a short space of time people with anxiety and panic were becoming a lot more calm and grounded. Because what happens is when we're in an anxious state, we go into the limbic part of the brain. And when we're in the limbic brain, we actually become a bit stupid. So we kind of, there's like we're not grounded, it's fight or flight or freeze, it's doom and gloom and frightening terror stories, and we're not very logical, we're not rational, we can't make sense of things, and it's very hard for us to function, okay? And it's quite hard to get out of that state. Now, when people practice things like mindfulness, meditation and yoga, what they're accessing is the prefrontal cortex, and in that state, it's a very, very creative place. It's very calm, very grounding. None of the symptoms that you get from the limbic state. So it's a very, very powerful place to be in. And they're finding that people that actually start practicing mindfulness and all those other modalities find it a lot easier to come out of the anxious state. So if they do go into that limbic state, they can come out of it a lot quicker. And that's what I've been finding with my own experience of where I've been practicing it. And so I don't really need to go into details about how to do mindfulness, I don't think, because there's a whole wealth of information about that. And if anything, I would recommend Natural Rest by Scott Kiloby. It doesn't talk about mindfulness, he's talking about rest, but I think it applies, it's very similar. The Happiness Trap by Russ, and I can't remember his second name. Or just get a book on mindfulness, or maybe go to a course, or start doing yoga. Anything like that is really good. What I love about Scott Kiloby is the way he talks about just resting for 3 seconds or something. Like just give yourself just a couple of seconds just to rest, and by that he means just drop everything, stop trying, stop, all the thoughts, just, it's kind of like you're resting in it just for a moment. And that was great. I loved reading that because I felt, well, I can do that. That seems doable. And the more I started practicing that, the more I found balance and space between my thinking, and that I'm not my thoughts. And so that has really helped me. So yeah, I definitely recommend anything like that. Maybe just put 10 minutes aside if you want and listen to a mindfulness CD, or like I said, just a couple of seconds of doing mindfulness, or go to a course where you're doing yoga, anything like that. Bring that into your everyday life. The other thing that I think is really good is, I was going to say exercise, but I don't want to use that word because exercise can put so many people off. I know it definitely did for me. for me it's like just take 5 minutes in my day, or less even, 3 minutes, is that doable? And go for a walk. Just go out of the house, wander down the road, come back. That in itself can be really, really helpful. It's just, 1, you're moving your body, 2, you're just getting out of that scenario that you're in, and hopefully if you're near some nature, that's going to help ground you as well. So it may seem like something very little, but it's actually really helpful, and where I've started implementing that into my life, I've noticed a lot of change too. And I'm finding that I'm becoming a lot more grateful for things around me, and more kind of notice so much more where I'm doing that. So yeah, that's another thing you can implement into your life, and is very powerful. And yeah, so really what I'm talking about is kind of retraining your mind or your behaviour to stop putting the emphasis on the thoughts. So the other thing I do, if I remember to, sometimes I forget, is when my mind starts just going off, just notice, okay, it's doing its thing, and I just stop. And I stop by just stop feeding it, like I was talking about in the other videos. Or I might stop by just, okay, notice what's here right now. Notice the sounds around me, how my body feels. Yeah, and there's another really good book about that. There's Stop Thinking and Start Living. And again, I've forgotten the author, so I'll put that underneath. Yeah, so that's like the key here is you need to get the emphasis off the thinking. You might want to even bring in dancing or something that you enjoy that's stopping you from doing your usual thing, usual situation where you might sit there and think or go to work and think. And this is just breaking that. It's like giving you a rest from that, so that you're creating more space from the thoughts. And you're finding it a lot easier if any kind of anxiety comes up to get out of that anxiety a lot quicker. And have that space even when you're in the anxious state, because that's what I like. If I do ever get anxious now, I have a lot more space with it. It's more like I'm kind of aware of it instead of totally immersed in it. And yeah, so that's really, really important. And you probably don't believe me. So maybe practice it and find out, or do what I did and just ignore it for a while until you're just like, alright then, I'll try it, and then you find out. Okay, let me know how that goes. Thanks, bye.